Kapustin Yar is a real Soviet missile test range, but for decades, it has also been at the center of terrifying stories about UFOs, underground labs, and secret experiments. For many researchers, it is the closest thing the USSR ever had to Area 51. This video explores how a remote stretch of Russian steppe turned into one of the most mysterious and haunted places of the Cold War. Kapustin Yar. The Soviet Area 51 of UFOs and secret experiments introduction in the late 1940s, just after World War II, the Soviet Union built a secret missile test site in the middle of nowhere. Officially, it was just a proving ground for rockets and weapons. Unofficially, stories soon began to spread about strange lights in the sky, crashed flying saucers, and underground hangars full of technology that did not come from Earth. Western journalists and UFO researchers eventually gave it a chilling nickname. The Soviet Area 51. Kapustin Yar became a magnet for conspiracy theories. Unlike Area 51, almost nobody in the West had ever seen it. No tourist buses, no gift shops, just satellite photos, rumors, and the testimonies of people who claimed to live in its shadow. What Kapustin Yar really was. Kapustin Yar lies in southern Russia, in the Astrakhan and Volgograd regions, surrounded by empty steppe and small villages. Construction began in 1946, and by 1947 it was the main test range for Soviet ballistic missiles, anti-aircraft systems, and later some early space launches. German rocket engineers taken from Peenemd after the war helped design tests there, much like how Operation Paperclip brought German scientists to the United States. For decades, almost everything about the site was classified. The location barely appeared on maps. Trains heading there had vague destinations. Villagers nearby knew only that they lived next to something extremely important, and extremely dangerous. When rockets failed, debris sometimes fell into surrounding areas, and locals were warned not to talk about what they saw. Secrecy was the perfect soil for myths. Whenever something strange happened in the sky over southern Russia, people assumed it came from Kapustin Yar. The 1948 Russian Roswell story, one of the most dramatic legends, dates to 1948. According to UFO books and later TV shows, Soviet radar picked up an unknown object approaching restricted airspace over Kapustin Yar. A fighter pilot was scrambled to intercept. The pilot allegedly described the target as a glowing disk moving with impossible speed. He was ordered to open fire. The story claims that the pilot launched rockets, hit the object, and watched it crash somewhere near the test range. Troops rushed to the site. What they found there, according to the legend, was not just wreckage, but a disc-shaped craft of unknown origin and several non-human bodies. Everything was supposedly loaded onto trucks and taken to an underground facility beneath Kapustin Yar, never to be seen again. Western ufologists later called this event the Russian Roswell. There are no declassified Soviet documents confirming it, but the tale kept resurfacing in books, documentaries, and interviews with alleged former military personnel. Underground hangars and reverse engineering. Another layer of the myth says that deep under Kapustin Yar, the Soviets built secret hangars and laboratories to study the captured craft. Some accounts claim that engineers tried to reverse engineer propulsion systems, strange alloys, or control mechanisms. In these stories, mysterious breakthroughs in Soviet rocketry and radar are quietly credited not just to brilliant scientists, but to borrowed extraterrestrial technology. Supporters of this idea point to the rapid progress of the Soviet space program. From post-war ruins to launching the first satellite and the first human into orbit in just over a decade. Skeptics counter that this progress is well documented and came from German V-2 heritage, huge state investment, and ruthless pressure on design bureaus. But the possibility of a hidden boost from something unearthly is too seductive to die. Local sightings and strange lights. Kapustin Yar is surrounded by a long history of UFO and paranormal reports. Residents of nearby villages have described glowing orbs, silent triangles, and cigar-shaped objects moving over the steppe or hovering above the test range. Some witnesses say the objects performed sharp turns or sudden accelerations that no ordinary aircraft could match. Others recall nights when the sky lit up with colors, green, purple, or intense white, far beyond what a normal rocket launch would create. Animals reportedly panicked, radios crackled, and compasses behaved strangely. Because speaking openly about military sites could lead to serious trouble in the Soviet era, many of these stories only surfaced years later, as veterans and locals began to talk more freely. Western intelligence also monitored the region. Declassified reports from the Cold War mention unusual aerial phenomena over southern Russia, though most analysts assumed they were related to new missile tests or experimental aircraft. Kapustin Yar versus Area 51. The comparison to Area 51 is not just about UFO stories. Both sites share several key features: remote desert or steppe locations, far from major cities. Extreme secrecy, with restricted airspace and armed patrols. Official denials about what exactly is being tested there. A mix of confirmed high-tech experiments and unconfirmed alien legends. In the United States, Area 51 is now well known, even if much inside remains classified. In contrast, Kapustin Yar is less familiar to Western audiences, which actually makes it feel more mysterious. There are fewer photos, fewer eyewitnesses, and far more room for imagination. Some researchers argue that Western media exaggerated the Soviet Area 51 angle during the 1990s and 2000s to create exciting stories, combining fragments of truth with speculation. Yet the nickname stuck, and with it, the idea that somewhere in Russia there might be hangars full of things the public was never meant to see. Skeptics, explanations, and missing proof. Skeptical investigators point out that many details about the 1948 crash story only appear in sources written decades after the alleged event. Names, exact dates, and technical information often change from one account to another. No physical wreckage has ever been shown, and no official Soviet or Russian archive has released documents confirming a recovered UFO. More mundane explanations exist for almost every element of the legend. Strange lights and shapes could be early ballistic missiles, rocket stages, or high-altitude flares. Silent, fast-moving objects might be experimental aircraft or re-entering debris. Underground bunkers and labs almost certainly exist, but for nuclear and missile research, not alien autopsies. Yet. Even serious historians admit that large parts of Kapustin Yar's history remain classified or poorly documented. In that vacuum, the line between what is known and what is imagined becomes very thin. Why Kapustin Yar still haunts people even if no alien craft ever crashed there. Kapustin Yar is still a deeply unsettling place. It was a site where weapons of mass destruction were tested, where rockets exploded, and where entire technologies designed for war were born. Secrecy was absolute. Accidents, contamination, or strange sightings rarely made it into newspapers. For many, the idea of a powerful state experimenting with forces it does not fully control is frightening enough, whether those forces come from advanced physics or from another world. The UFO stories amplify that fear, turning a real Cold War base into a stage for cosmic horror. Today, parts of Kapustin Yar are still active, and others are littered with abandoned launch pads and decaying infrastructure. Satellite images show scars on the landscape. Craters, burned zones, rusting towers. It looks exactly like the kind of place where something dangerous and secret could still be happening. Conclusion: Kapustin Yar sits at the crossroads of fact and legend. On one side, a very real Soviet test range where missiles, radars, and space hardware were born in total secrecy. On the other, tales of downed flying saucers, underground hangars, and scientists working on technology from beyond the stars. Until more archives are opened, or someone finally produces undeniable physical evidence, the truth behind Kapustin Yar will remain hidden in classified files and late-night stories. For now, it stands as the Soviet Area 51. A reminder that some of the strangest Cold War mysteries may still be buried beneath the steppe.